Well, it's wonderful to be with you in this new way for me at St. Paul's, Nantucket. Now, preaching is not new. I've been a parish priest for 36 years, and for 30 of those, I would regularly in the summers be here. But at the 8 o'clock service, sort of hiding in the back, never had a clerical collar with me, always left those at home, trying to stay incognito, and always left here feeling rejuvenated and refreshed. I'd come here with my family for rest and vacation, and I convinced my vestries over the years to allow me to stay a little bit longer to do some more study and writing and the like, but always trying to sort of stay anonymous. And then on my way back home after the 8 o'clock service in recent years, I started stopping at the Wicked Island Bakery for a croissant, and get some morning buns, things like that for the children. And this year, I've gone every Sunday. And after the 8 o'clock service, there are no croissants. I thought about Max telling them, look, I think we ought to say if you bring a bulletin from St. Paul's, Nantucket, there should be croissants reserved for you. But truly, this community, this church, has been refreshing, rejuvenating, and inspiring for me. I've just recently retired from a very large church. Max massively oversold it. It's by no means the largest Episcopal church in the United States. It's big, but it's not that big. And I said, Max, you got to be careful because some of your parishioners from Houston, Texas are going to take offense if they hear this. But I have decided that in my retirement from being rector of large churches that I would do my best to travel around various parts of the country and do what I can to support Episcopal churches and their leaders. And it turns out I was recently in Wyoming leading a clergy conference there, and I wanted them to know just how extraordinary this community is, and particularly Max Wolf. There are a lot of good rectors out there, but Max is truly among the very best of all. Now, I've been an Episcopalian all my life, and so I know a little something about you. Now, I'm sort of averse to stereotypes, so I don't take them too seriously, but sometimes the stereotype fits a little bit. By and large, Episcopalians tend to be a kind of overeducated group of people. We enjoy the world of the mind. We love expansive thinking when it comes to matters of religion and the church. We love debating and discussing theological ideas, and sometimes, along with Presbyterians, we are known as God's frozen chosen. I think that one's wrong. I mean, certainly about you. But nevertheless, it somehow sticks. And unfortunately, there are times when we are a people about whom Jesus might have been speaking in this morning's gospel when he says, there are times when this people, they honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. See, unfortunately, that's the problem with people who think too much. It's easy to get stuck in the mind and not allow our faith to descend to that deeper level where it might lodge more completely with all our soul and all our strength and all our heart. I think this is one of the reasons Jesus taught in parables, because instead of just sort of giving people ideas to think about, he gave us stories so that we could imagine ourselves in these stories and feel the truth of what he was trying to say. We would know it on that deeper level of the heart, the soul, and our strength, not just go round and round in our minds. It exasperated the disciples. They hated it. These things are too hard for us. Just speak plainly, they said. And we know there came a time when Jesus did have to speak plainly. Because in his last hours, in the upper room, Judas, the Gospels said, had already gone out to do what Judas felt was necessary to do, and betray him. And Jesus, knowing what had happened, turned to the rest of those in the room and said, essentially, I don't have much time now. You've heard me teach a lot. You've heard a lot of parables. But I don't have time for that anymore. You know all the commandments. But listen to me carefully now. I'm giving you a new commandment. Love each other. Just love each other. By this, everyone will know you're my disciples. Not if you go to church every Sunday, not if you remember all my teaching, or in the future somebody's going to come up with a creed and there will even be something called a New Testament. Not if you know all those things. Just if you love each other. The result was a way of life eventually for that first 100 years plus in the early church that was so incredible. There was massive, explosive growth in the church, greater than in the history of religions. Incredible growth. Tertullian, one of the great leaders of the early church, explained it this way. He said, what's going on here is that outsiders, non-Christians, are looking in and they're seeing how we live, and they're saying with astonishment, see how those Christians love each other. That's the life I want for me and for my family, for my friends. This is why the church grew. Not because the New Testament was so compelling, because there was no New Testament in that first 100 plus years, nothing like it. Not because there was a great convincing creed, there was no creed. But because Christians were evincing with their life what Jesus told them was the most important thing of all. Just love each other. You know, I think it's just fascinating that in the earliest church, when they got together to worship, there was no such thing as a confession of sin, a general confession. Earliest Christians didn't get together and say, confess that they had done those things that they ought not to have done, and left undone those things that they ought to have done. Nothing like it in their worship. Because they had something better. They had what we now call the peace. The peace of the Lord be always with you, and also with you. They actually believed that if we were in peace and harmony and love with each other, then we were in peace, love, and harmony with God. And for some of the early disciples, surely things all started to come together about what they had heard Jesus say. I am the vine, you are the branches. I am in you, and you are in me. As you therefore do to each other, you are doing it to me. It matters completely how we are in relationship with each other. As the first epistle of John said, nobody can say they love God if they do not, God whom they have not seen, if they do not also love their neighbor whom they do see. But it's hard. Human beings are just prone to getting stuck in it. It's not just Episcopalians. And frankly, much of the New Testament was all about cleaning up messy situations in the church St. Paul trying to make things right again after things got out of whack. We're just human. And in the Episcopal Church, well, not too terribly long ago, I remember in 2003, when a friend of mine was nominated to be Bishop of New Hampshire, I was delighted, but I knew there would be trouble, particularly as rector of a very large church in the South. All sorts of large churches in the southern part of the United States were having difficulty over this. I wrote a letter to my parish trying to explain that this is a good man, they would really love him, and the people of New Hampshire were confident this was the man to lead them. Nevertheless, there was an explosion of animosity. People were cutting their pledges, leaving the church altogether. It seemed to be the most important thing in many people's lives, what was happening to the Episcopal Church. 2 years later, things had gotten worse. 2005 marked the beginning of the steepest decline in the Episcopal Church in record. And that's exactly when I went to St. Stephen's Church in Richmond, Virginia. And they had had serious issues there. People had left. Many had cut their pledges. Attendance was significantly down. And so the vestry and the search committee, after they called me, said they had a great idea. And that before I got started, before I actually moved into my office, why didn't I just introduce myself to the congregation on some weeknight? And I wondered, wait, is this a test? If it doesn't work, they're going to say, well, why don't you go on and we'll call somebody else. But that night, the place was packed, 700-800 people. And they just wanted to hear my story, after which I had planned, I first took a lot of questions. We had a good time. But then I asked the ushers to please pass out blank index cards and pens. Once everybody had an index card, I said, I want you to imagine God comes to you. And God says, I'm going to invite you to ask me any question at all. Just one, though. One question. And I will answer it, I promise. I want you to write down on your index card, what would that question be? If you could ask God anything, but only one question, what would that question be? Do not put your name on the card, I told them. I don't want you gussying up your question so that I think you're very smart or something, or I don't want you to try to impress the new rector. I really want to know what's in your heart. What would you ask God? Well, you could have heard a pin drop. I mean, nobody moved for a while. Episcopalians aren't generally good at these things. But then they started writing furiously. I could tell that something had taken hold, and so I asked afterwards if the ushers would please collect all the cards and bring them to me. And I held this massive stack of hundreds of cards, all with these questions, what they would ask God. And I said, I look forward to looking at these. I don't pretend that I'll be able to answer them, but I would like for our life to be centered on these things that are most important to you, the true questions of your heart. And that week, I just devoted myself to reading them carefully. You know the most impressive thing to me? Out of the 700 or 800 cards, not a single person asked me a question about human sexuality or the mechanics of the Episcopal Church. Nothing about the controversy that was causing people to leave and cut their pledges and engage in such animosity to church leaders and to one another. Not a single question. Instead, you know what they asked? These are real questions. Is my daughter with you in heaven? Will I get to see my mother again? My marriage is in trouble. We've tried everything. I don't think it's going to work, and I'm really scared. God, will you help me? Another person wrote, I've done some really terrible things in my life. Do you really forgive me? You see, my conviction is that once we leave that whirling chaos of the mind and descend to the depths of the heart and the soul, where our spiritual strength really is, to commune more completely with God in our life of prayer and worship, our life with each other, that gradually certain convictions start to arise. It's not that we hear a voice from God answering the questions audibly, but we start to realize, is my daughter with you in heaven? Yes. Will I get to see my mother again? Yes, you will. I'm afraid our marriage is in real trouble. I don't think we're going to make it. Will you please help me? Yes, I am with you, always. I've done some terrible things in my life. I'm so ashamed. Do you really forgive me? Oh, child, I forgave you a long time ago. I don't even know what terrible things you're talking about. In the 1990s, when I was rector of a church in Charlotte, North Carolina, Mother Teresa came to town and she was asked to speak at the Charlotte Coliseum. Traffic backed up for miles. You couldn't find a parking place anywhere near the Coliseum. And when the time came for Mother Teresa to speak, and she was ushered out, this tiny, diminutive, stooped-over, older woman to the central stage, Coliseum packed to the rafters, she began her talk to the people of Charlotte this way. Don't come to Calcutta. Go home. Go home and love the people you find there. I've now traveled the world, but I've never encountered the kind of poverty that I have found here in the richest country in the world, the United States of America. Don't come to Calcutta. Go home. Love the people in your family. Love your neighbors, the clerk at the store, the colleagues at work, the people at school. Just love the people God sends to you. Now, I don't think Mother Teresa was advocating a kind of America First isolationist philosophy. She had just noticed there was a significant problem here in this country. And what I want to say to you this morning is this. I can tell that this parish church sees that problem and is responding in inspiring, rejuvenating ways. It is hard to be a church and a church leader in a pandemic, but you've been an incredible light to others. And going forward, not only this community, but each of you is poised. If Mother Teresa is right, that the only thing that matters now is to go home and love those you find there, you are poised, each of you, and St. Paul's, to be a light to the world.